Hey, thank you, and thank you for staying until the very end. So stick with me for the next 20-something minutes before we go into happy hour. I wish we could just go grab a drink and come back and chat about this. That would be probably a little bit better. But for now, let's just have a conversation. The title of this presentation is Adventures in Pricing. Before I start, a little bit about myself. As you can tell by my accent, I'm not from the US. I'm originally from Colombia. I moved to the US about, I'm going to say 9 years ago. Lived in New York for a while, then Pittsburgh, and then moved to Seattle. I'm going to talk about my company in a little bit, but then I want this conversation to be a little bit about us sharing kind of what we think is the outcome of the adventures that we have in terms of pricing. So I would love it if you just raise your hand whenever I ask a question. If not, I'll call, and I call somebody who's already spoken here, so I'll figure out, I'll point at somebody and ask them what they think the outcome is, all right? So let's get started. Let's talk about AppSheet very quickly. The purpose of our platform is to let anyone build their own mobile apps for business purposes. If you think about the campaigns that Apple had a few years ago, it was there's an app for that. That's how they would claim. The truth is that there is not an app for that. Most of the apps of the world are never built. And they're never built because they're expensive to make or because most of the people are just technology consumers. They consume technology that is built for them rather than them building their own technology. So we come up with a platform that allows anybody to build their own apps, their own solutions, using their own data. So we want to make sure that those apps are as easily built as a spreadsheet. So if you already have a spreadsheet, you could build a mobile app with our platform. They are distributed easily. The cost is relatively reasonable. We'll be talking about pricing, so that also makes sense. And they're secure, and they're really customized for the business scenario. And that's very important. We want people to be building the apps that are custom for their business scenario rather than adapting some other solution to their business. So the app is actually for their business rather than the business needs to adapt to the app. I need to describe this because this is very important to talk about in a few seconds when we talk about how we're pricing our product. Okay? So the first thing that AppSheet does, thank you so much. The first thing that AppSheet does is that you use your data. You have a spreadsheet with a list of tasks. You bring your data, you connect it to AppSheet, and then that automatically builds an app for you. So you can build apps automatically with our platform without having to write any code. That means that your data could live in Dropbox, in Box, in Google Sheets, in Excel, in OneDrive, any kind of platform that hosts data. You can then connect it to AppSheet, automatically build an app, and then deploy it and send it to your users. As simple as that. Okay? No code that you need to write. All right. I don't know if you have any questions about what the platform does, but then again, sorry, I'm going to walk here. You have your data. We don't deal with your data. The app is built automatically. You can customize it, and then you can just send it to your users. That's it. That's the only thing that you get to do. All right. So I thought that a good way of us walking through the different pricing experiences that we had in the past is by emulating a little adventure game that I love, Super Mario Brothers. So I'll kind of walk between level 1.1 to level 1.4 and maybe go start level 2.1. If you're not familiar with Super Mario Brothers, I think there's already one game available in the iOS App Store and Android, so you can play that one. It's similar to this one, but this is the one from the 80s, okay? So you'll need to get a Nintendo Classic to be able to play this one. But let's tell the stories. This is what I want to do. I want to very quickly tell you what we did, and I would like to ask you what do you think the outcome of what we did was. Like what happened to us. And then I'll kind of briefly show you what happened in that scenario. So level 1.1, about 2 years ago, we launched our product at the end of 2014, so we've been in the market for about 2 years and a half. Level 1.1, we make the app editor free. That means that we have a platform that it's used to create apps, but the tool itself to create the apps is free. You don't pay for that one. As opposed to, let's say, Adobe, that has a platform to create electronic materials like posters and websites, and they do charge for the tool. We decided to make our editor, the thing that creates the apps, something free. Why? Well, we really wanted to share our platform to as many people as we could. The bigger the diversity of users, the better for us. That was our thought. So what do you think happened when we give away our product for free? Anybody wants to guess? There's no right or wrong. Exactly. We got a lot of users. Not a lot of users are paying, but a lot of users just jump in. So that's pretty much what happened. The reason of why that happened is because we always have started to think about what are we going to price our product on. So if we go back to the same model, are we going to charge for hosting? Are we going to have people host, like put their data in our database and then charge them for the hosting? A lot of products do that, right? They just charge for hosting. Google Drive is a hosting service. That's what they charge for. So we say, no, let's not charge for hosting. Should we charge for the tool itself? As we mentioned, Adobe does it. Maybe we should do it. We decided not to go for that. We thought about charging for customer success. That means if what you're doing is useful, then you'll be willing to pay because that's where the value is. Like if you create something that is successful, you'll see the value and you'll be willing to pay for the product. So we decided to charge for the users. How many people are using your app? You should be charging for that. This in comparison to, let's say, MailChimp, which does the same, right? There's no charge for using the MailChimp tool. You can create any email on the MailChimp tool. The question is how many people are receiving those emails. And that's what you pay for. So it's about the list of people that you're sending the email. So we decided to go on that path. Yes, we made it free, so a lot of people started using it. Some people started giving us some money, but not as many people as we wanted to have. So we started to charge for the users. The nice thing about it is that we got a lot of people using our product. And when you say a lot of people, it's not only the same type of people, but the most diverse set of people. So we got a cattle trader making his own app so we can just go and do trading of cattle and sell it. We have chemical technicians, sales managers, people in engineering operations, NGO founders. Like, just pick some vertical and there was somebody making an app in our platform. The challenge then was, who are we selling this product to and what is their willingness to pay? Because how can you compare a police sergeant making an app for, I don't know, response for emergencies compared to a cattle trader to a harbor pilot captain? So it was very diverse. It was difficult for us to manage that path. Right, so level 1.1, we made it free. What we got was a very horizontal platform. That was the outcome. The nice thing about it is that we learned a lot from those users. Level 1.2. I'm pretty sure there's some sort of metaphor with the image that I put there, so I don't know. I'm going to say that as a startup, you have to go into a tunnel and then hit walls and coins drop from the wall. I don't know, but there's a metaphor there. So what we started doing in level 1.2 is, okay, we're making the app editor for free. We're going to start charging for the users. How much do we charge for those users? Well, we don't know. Like, we don't know how many apps are doing that kind of service. So we just made it as simple as possible. If an individual is making an app and they want to deploy that app to some users, let's make it self-service. So we don't have to jump in the middle as much as is needed. So let's make it cheap. Let's create a license that is $1 per user per month per app. So if you have one app and you have one user, then it's $1 per month. So we actually let some app creators pay us $1 per month. That was the goal. So what do you think is the outcome of what we did here when we created that kind of very low barrier to entry in terms of pricing? Any guesses? We lost a lot of users. Well, actually, no. We got the same path of users. So a lot of people still going into the free plan. Some users started to pay, but some users started to pay very, very low. And this is what happened. We created all these different tiers in terms of features that are available and how much you can pay for those. So we can start with the $1 per user per month, and it goes up to, in some scenarios, $20 per user per app per month. It's a very widespread kind of set of different SKUs that we started to offer. This is actually the next slide where we talk about why do we have so many of this available. But let me make some quick math into what we ended up offering. I don't know if this has a pointer. Probably does. There you go. So quick calculations. If you had 20 users and you had 10 apps, all right, because we're charging per user per app per month, then the total cost of AppSheet per year was $12,000. That's it. That was your calculation. You owe us $12,000. But if you and everybody came in through the same funnel. But if you were in that same funnel and you decided that the app was just for you and there was only one user and you had the standard features and you only used the app for 2 months, then it's only $2. We were serving people that were buying our product for $2. We're serving people that were buying our product for $12,000 in the same funnel. And that was a bit challenging. Because what happened was that our product was at the same time too cheap and too expensive. When people were very successful building apps with our platform and they started treating AppSheet the same way they would treat, let's say, PowerPoint, they would make as many apps as they needed, the cost went so high that they just say, okay, no, this is too expensive for me. I cannot really use it, in a self-service model. But if it's $1 per user per month, they go like, you know what? I cannot just go to my management and tell them to approve an expense of $1 per user per month. So this is either too cheap or too expensive for me to serve. So this was the situation of how we set up pricing, where we just let it be too low or either too high. Now, level 1.3, again, there's some cliffs. I'm assuming that there's a metaphor there. Don't read too much into it. I just picked that level. Now, because we made one user, per app, per month, we decided to switch into all you can eat. That means that you pay for your users, and you can deploy as many apps as you want to those users. So you can create as many apps as you want, effectively turning our product the same way that Google Apps does it or Office does it, right? You can create as many PowerPoints as you like it as your platform. So any guesses on what happened when we moved from per user, per app, per month to effectively reducing the price of AppSheet significantly by just making an all-you-can-eat buffet? Any guesses? Maybe that was too complicated. All right, no, that's good. Yeah, I know, that's why I thought that maybe having the drink would help. So yeah, we created our plans, and then we said, okay, we're serving some people that have one app and multiple users. We're serving some people that have multiple apps and few users. So we made it all you can eat. The problem is that before, when we started in this model, when we had per user, per month, per app, we started to get people entrenched in those different SKUs. And the problem we faced here, when we came back to the product, when we started to say, okay, it's all you can eat, is that we already have people sitting in those different buckets. So can we just stop serving a segment of our market because they're consuming our product and telling them, you know what, now you have to move into this all you can eat product, although you're only serving one app. You know, you only have one app, you only have to get in that point. Well, we created a new problem to ourselves, which is we started working on a per user plan, as you can see here. That means any apps to those number of users. But then we had to stick with a public apps, or what we say per app plan. That means that, okay, we're already serving some customers. We have a few thousand of those customers there. Let's just serve those customers and keep on doing that. So we actually ended up locked with a per user and a per app or a different type of volume plan. So we're now serving multiple segments at the same time. So there you go. We have to go with these public apps and then decide, okay, let's just raise the prices for a per app plan. And another problem rose at that moment. We rose the prices. That means that we were charging people per app. And this is what you're going to realize at this moment. This is a bit confusing. We have something that is $1, $5, or $10, and then you switch into the other model and you have $10, $20, and $50. What is the difference between one and the other? That's exactly where we also fell. People were very confused into the SKUs that we were offering. Like, people just didn't know exactly what they were getting. People thought that they could go into one of our plans, you know, this publisher plans or this per app plans, and have the same features as the feature set that was available here, which wasn't the case. What we really learned from that experience was that if you're going to start setting up the pricing, it's very important to have a certain philosophy around the pricing that you're building. In our case was, let's have as many app creators as we can. But at the same time, you have to be thinking about going down in the long term, are you going to be able to serve all of the customer segments that you are creating? And at this point, what we had is we started to create two customer segments that were a little bit conflicting to each other. Then we move into this, the next level. And this is an interesting anecdote. About 1.5 years into having released our product, we decided to start enforcing payment. This is kind of weird, because we had this pricing page since we launched. We were asking people to pay. We just never enforced payment. We just told them, you know, man, you like our product. If you feel like paying, pay. But if you don't feel like paying, it's okay. It's just going to work. And it just worked. Like, the apps worked, and we're just deploying those apps. So for about 1.5 years, we were not enforcing payment. People were using the product. They will see in the pricing page, and that was about it. So any guesses on what happened at this stage? Right? Lots of unhappy users. Yes, we have a whole bunch of unhappy users that were all of a sudden realizing that, what's going on? Like, this thing was working, and all of a sudden it stopped working for me. Why it stopped working? Well, you're supposed to be paying. We just never told you that you had to pay. Let me just show you a graphic of what that means. This is just a snapshot in time in 2016 when we started enforcing payment. It's very clear what happened to our monthly recurring revenue slope between this week when we started to enforce payment and subsequent weeks in terms of net new monthly recurring revenue added, okay? So the nice thing about this is that if people are successful with your product and they feel that they want to pay, some of them will. We were surprised with that. Like, we were making some money. Like, we had double-digit revenue growth. We're fine with that. The trigger for this situation was, hey, how's our MRR going? And why did we ask ourselves this question? Well, because we want to go raise money from the VCs. So we have to maximize our MRR as much as we can. So at that point, we realized, okay, we're growing. Could we be growing faster? Then we realized, okay, we have this philosophy comment right next to us. We need to bring as many app creators as we can. A lot of people need to be using our platform versus we need people to start paying. And we need to ask the people that are successful with our platforms to give us some money. So we realized that, yes, some people will give us money, but if people are not reminded to pay, well, they won't. Simple as that. So this is where we have that big inflection point in our product. And the funny thing is some people were unhappy, but then once they were reminded that the issue was that they just forgot to pay, and when we say forgot to pay, we never told them, now we're telling you to pay, they were okay with it because value was already derived. Like, there was no issue about realizing, oh my God, this is not useful to me, why am I supposed to pay now? Like, that conversation never happened. All right, so that was the first kind of layer that kind of brought us into this new path of revenue. And then what happened after that, after actually a few months of going into that path, most of the customers that we were serving, so right now we have about 4,000 paid customers in our platform. Most of our customers are in the SMB or individual space. So I'm a member of a team, I buy AppSheet for my team, and that's it. I don't care about IT mandating or allowing me to use the product. I just get it because I need it, or the SMB or the mid-market company uses it. But then it starts to happen that some of those customers, you saw at the very beginning some of those customers, Pepsi or some big engineering firms, when they start seeing our product, IT then notices that we are using, that some of their teams are using AppSheet. And then they come back to us and say, hey, wait a second, now you have to sell to us. And the question now becomes very, very precise. Oh, sorry, I probably missed, I didn't press the right button. The big company, big IT, centralized IT wants to talk. That becomes a new pricing conversation for us. So they just come to us and say, okay, some people are using the product, or many people individually are using the product. How do we get the product for the business? What do you think should be done in that case? And that's our recent conversation, or where we stand right now in terms of what AppSheet does. Any comments here? Exactly. No, that's exactly bingo. The first point is, do we have the product that we can sell to them? Because at the beginning, if we go back to our previous slides, let's just make a product that these guys can self-serve, right? So any individual can go in and make their own apps and do the product that they want to have. So let's make a product that they can self-serve. But now when it becomes an enterprise conversation, well, it's a different type of pricing conversation. So we started with the same trick that probably all of you do. You set up some pricing. You do want to sell to the enterprise. The first thing you do is just put somewhere in your pricing page, I have corporate plans. They start at $8,000 a year. I don't know, we'll figure it out afterwards. We started with $1,200 a year. We had too many leads coming at $1,200 a year, so we just say, okay, let's raise the price of our corporate plan to see what happens. And then we raise it to $600 a year, and then the number of leads normalize. It sounds like bragging, but when you have to serve a lead that is too low in terms of cost, you're just not spending the time the right way. You want to lead, you want to push all the leads that are low price into a self-service model, which is the thing that's working for us best right now. Just go and self-serve. Just go and purchase the licenses that you need. Talk to us if you need some support help or some technical help. We'll help you, but just go and self-serve. If you want to buy something bigger, then we'll talk to you. The question is always, what is the line for bigger? So we just created a little link in our pricing page and say, okay, let's start at 6,000 instead of 1,200 a year. Contact us for more details. We have a little sign-up form. This is the time of the presentation where I tell you that we don't have a sales team. We're a 10-person organization serving 30,000 apps per month and 4,000 paying customers. So I'm actually probably just going to go to sleep right after this because we're very, very tired. But it was all around the philosophy of us as a business saying we want to start by getting as many app creators as we can. It's not about driving MRR as fast as we can or just creating a high enough price product that if I sell to 5 customers, then I have the MRR that I need. It's more about volume of people that are creating those apps and having those apps going into market. So that's kind of what created a differentiation between what the product can do. I don't know how we're doing on time. How we're doing on time, by the way? Okay. Differentiate about what we can do and what we really want to achieve. So it was a big conversation about philosophy versus what we can really set as your pricing strategy. So just to close very quickly, what we learned in this 5 little stories is first, like our pricing model or your pricing model must be derived from the business philosophy. Just think about what you want to achieve from a business and where do you want to monetize value, right? Sometimes it's easy to go and chase competitors and price exactly as they price, but you have to think about what you really want to achieve as a business. Then the other one is, as I mentioned, is where you can bring that most value and then differentiate there. Instead of trying to cover the whole value chain that you are serving, try to find the place where you can bring the most value, and that's a good starting point. And this is very important for us. It can lead you to some holes that you cannot get out of, but you won't really know what works until you put it in front of customers and just ask them, are you willing to pay for this? And then they will start paying for it. So it's really about there's never a perfect strategy, but it's going to put it in front of your product in front of customers and let them decide what makes more sense or not. And finally, if you're more interested in numbers, there was actually, if you read the MetaMark Daily, there was a great pricing survey released just yesterday. So if you go into mattermark.com, I think, and search for the MetaMark Daily, just a big kudos to them and a plug for them. Just go and check, and they have like a non-Mario related presentation on pricing. All right, that will be it for me.
Santiago. Okay, questions.
Thanks, Mario. I'm about to go through a major pricing exercise as well, and I really don't want to go through 5 iterations and learn as much as you did over so many years.
Just 2.
You can get a lot of these learnings by asking your customers ahead of time, or do you think you just had to put it out there and see what it's like? I mean, would market research have gotten a lot of this, or do you pretty much have to test it?
No, that's a great question. And again, it connects back to your philosophy. And if your philosophy is like a mass market philosophy, I want to reach as many people as I can. No matter what sample you get, you're not really getting a significant sample. If you're thinking about, okay, I'm going to power the next billion users, no 1,000 users are really going to be that precise. If you know exactly what your vertical is, if you know exactly what market segment you're serving, just do prior market research, probably some competitive research if there's already somebody doing that, and then match it. But in some cases, you just don't know. You just don't know because that product is not exactly being offered into the marketplace at that point. But you are completely right on that, in that direction. Mm-hmm.
So you've been through lots of pricing changes over your history. How did you, each time you change, how did you address the historical customers who were on the previous pricing plans?
Awesome question. So rule number 1, and pretty much the only rule is, you're not going to, I forget the idioms, but you're not pulling the rug from under the customer. That means that if they're already committed to your product at a certain value, you're not just going to come up with something that is going to make it all of a sudden more expensive to them. So you either discount that specific customer or make sure that your new policy is still going to be beneficial to your customer. So thus, every change we made never made it more expensive to the user. It actually fostered adoption in a different path. So we actually started to expand on some of those customers because we made it easier for them to consume more. But we never just told them, oh, right now your product used to be, I don't know, $1,000, now it's $5,000, thank you. We never went in that direction.